What was it like gaming in the 90s? Well, the short answer is, it was amazing, incredible, quite simply magical. But the real answer, it was something you had to feel to understand. See, gaming in the 90s was about discovery, wonder, and excitement. Why today, we're used to waiting 5+ years for a sequel to a video game that plays and looks almost identical to the one before it. In the 90s, things moved much faster. Technology didn't crawl forward, it leaped. We went from 16-bit to 32 to 64 in what felt like a blink of an eye. We saw games transition from flat 2D pixels to full-blown 3D worlds that felt limitless. New genres and franchises popped up every week. Every trip to the store was a quest, a chance to discover something completely new. Yes, sometimes it was a dud, like Superman 64, but other times, we would find a game so incredible you couldn't stop talking about it at school. Something so epic that it no longer felt like a video game. Instead, it felt like an epic odyssey. The 90s had some rituals basically every kid from that time period got to experience. Like going to Blockbuster on a Friday night, pacing up and down the aisle, searching for that new game you'd obsess over all weekend long. By the way, have you ever gone back and watched some of those old Blockbuster commercials? They were so 90s, they almost feel like a parody of the 90s.
But get real, you'd rather be playing video games. You can rent them from Blockbuster. They've got more of the coolest new Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Sega Genesis games for rent than anyone in the world. So dudes, why not get your games at Blockbuster? It's the mature thing.
And thank God for places like Blockbuster, because let's be real, in the 90s, games were expensive. As a kid, unless you had some sort of secret trust fund or you were richy rich, you probably weren't buying a new game every week. If you were lucky, you got 2 games a year, one on your birthday and one on Christmas. And if you were really lucky, you might have got a new video game console. Now, to anyone out there who didn't live through the 90s, that probably sounds like torture level bad. Only 2 games a year? But here's the thing, it wasn't. Because back then, things were just different. No one actually called themselves a gamer. We were just kids who played games. Being a gamer was not our entire identity. Believe it or not, we actually spent a lot of time outside, playing street hockey, riding our bikes, seeing as far as we could go. There was only one simple rule. When the streetlights came on, it was time to go home. We would come up with ridiculous backyard adventures. Battlefield, Call of Duty, our version of those games was running around with Nerf guns.
It's Nerf or nothing.
You might go days without touching your console or spending an entire Christmas break glued to the screen, jotting down notes, passwords, and mapping out dungeons. It didn't matter. The entire gaming culture was just different. In the 90s, the world felt small in the sense that your neighborhood was your entire world. A game could be 5 years old, yet when you finally discovered it, it felt new. It wasn't solved yet, it still had mystery. You didn't have to worry about scrolling Twitter and having spoilers posted the very day it came out. And that was for everything. Half the time now, I can't even go online without having Netflix posting the ending of a TV show that hasn't even released yet. Back then, there was no FOMO, no daily login rewards, no timed events, no battle passes to grind. Video games were just pure fun, on your terms when you wanted it. Back then, multiplayer meant walking to your friend's house, knocking on the door, and asking, "Hey, can you play?" By the way, it's kind of funny that before the internet really popped off, video games actually felt more social. It wasn't about headsets or online lobbies where no one talked or just screamed into the mic. It was about gathering around someone's house, everyone piling onto the same couch, controllers tangled, snacks everywhere. Sometimes we would hold our very own Mortal Kombat Bloodsport tournament.
Wins. Fatality.
Other times, we'd be playing Mario Kart, racing down the track, as we did our best not to fall off Rainbow Road. The other kids in your neighborhood that played games as well, they became basically brothers or sisters. Sure, there was still some console war tension. I mean, how could there not be when we had marketing like this blasting on the television?
16-bit sports action.
You can't do this on the
And it wasn't just the social aspect that made this time so special. Discovering your next solo adventure was its own kind of magic. Imagine this. You walk into the store, and there's a game box on the shelf that you know nothing about. But for some reason, it just catches your eye. The cover art calls to you. And by some miracle, your parents actually buy you it. That's right, a new game. And it's not Christmas or your birthday. It's just a random Tuesday. Then, in the car ride home, pure anticipation. Because you're sitting in the back seat reading the game manual, cover to cover. Yeah, back in the 90s, games actually came with manuals, thick ones, with story intros, bios, and sometimes even maps. And when you got home and booted it up, just by the game's startup screen, there were times where you knew you were about to play something truly special. It didn't matter if it was a JRPG masterpiece like Chrono Trigger, or if it was a PC revolution like Doom. A good game was a good game, and when you found one, it felt like you struck gold. These were the games you would get lost in all weekend long, and come Monday morning, you were actually excited to go to school because you couldn't wait to tell everyone about your latest find. Remember, in the early 90s, the internet wasn't really a thing yet. It was, but it wasn't widely available. So when you found the latest hottest release, or a game that was sitting on a shelf for 5 years, if you were the first kid to find it, it was like groundbreaking news, and the excitement would spread like wildfire to all of your friends. And then of course, there was the arcade. And this was a beast all of its own. If you walked into one of these places with a couple bucks in your pocket, you felt like a king. I remember there was always certain cabinets that had a massive crowd around them. Games like Street Fighter 2. Kids would line up and put quarters down to hold their next place in line so they could all take turns trying to down the local champ. And then of course, there was spectators, the ones just standing around, eyes glued to the screen, watching two players battle it out. If you think about it, this was sort of the first version of Twitch, except you were actually there. You could feel the excitement. You joined in on the cheers, the trash talk, the debates. Everything was happening right in front of you, and you were a part of it. But it wasn't just fighting games. There were other corners of the arcade that were always crowded. Pinball machines, air hockey tables, even old school Pac-Man cabinets somehow never lost their appeal to a mass audience. And then there was my personal favorites, the beat 'em ups, X-Men, Cadillac and Dinosaurs, Ninja Turtles, Aliens vs. Predator, and who could forget The Simpsons arcade game? It was a crazy time. If 3 people happened to be at this arcade, you could jump in as the 4th player, and immediately all 4 of you felt like you were best friends, as if you knew each other for years. In the arcade, it didn't matter if you were black, white, Mexican, Asian, male, or female. None of it really mattered. The arcade was just a great equalizer. Your skill, personality, or your jokes. That's all that really counted. But let's move along and talk about the second half of the 90s. Because like I said before, in this time period, technology leaped forward. Because in the mid-90s, something happened that would change gaming forever. The release of the PlayStation. And it wasn't just the PlayStation. We also had the Sega Saturn and the Nintendo 64. We started to see games transform right before our eyes, going from 2D to 3D. Games started to feel more mature and vast, and every new game felt like a glimpse into the future. Whether you were exploring the Spencer Mansion and discovering the dark secrets of Umbrella and Resident Evil, or playing Metal Gear Solid, and for the first time in your life, it actually felt like you were playing a movie in video game format. Not to mention other titles like Ocarina of Time, let you explore Hyrule like you have never had before. These weren't just games, they were moments that would change gaming history forever. And in the late 90s, it wasn't just about these new consoles and new graphics. Something else came along that became more widely spread and popular. The internet. Yeah, it was weird and clunky, but it was magical in its own way. You could log on and just explore. Try to discover if all those gaming rumors you've heard in the past were actually true. Is there a secret cow level in Diablo? Let's go find out. And it wasn't just collecting knowledge about past games. You could even play games online, like StarCraft or Unreal Tournament. And when you logged off, it was different back then. Back then, when you signed offline, you were just back in the real world. There was no cell phone in your pocket or smartwatch on your wrist. Everything just felt so new. There was always some new mystery on the horizon. A new game, a new console, a new world to explore and discover. Now, I know. I'm looking back in time through rose-tinted glasses. The decade definitely had its flaws, just like every other time period. But if you were a kid back then, you felt it, that spark and sense of wonder. And honestly, I think that's what I miss most. It wasn't just newer games, but everything just felt like it had a sense of mystery and discovery to it. The world felt small, but the possibilities felt endless. And while I have grown up, and I have a family and a career, and actually a pretty happy life, I will always cherish my childhood memories. And hopefully, I always stay young at heart.